there, Mama. I'm Courtney Cecil, proud mom of two boys and an organizational culture and behavior change executive. And I'm a believer in building a movement to help the burned out, overwhelmed working moms reclaim their control and free time so that they can confidently remain in the workforce without losing their sanity or themselves. Now, let's get started. Hey, y'all. I'm your host, Courtney Cecil, and welcome back to another episode of the Life Management System. And inside this episode, I am thrilled to host my friend, Lori Sugarman-Li. So, Lori, welcome to the Life Management System for starters.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, so Lori and I had the pleasure of spending multiple days together at a conference in Orlando this past April and instantly were magnetized to each other because
Yes.
of our investment in like helping families survive and just recognizing what hardship moms often carry and often solo at home and how much that baggage influences everything else and most especially their energy in other parts of life. So, Lori, I'm actually going to just, instead of teeing you up and introducing you, I would love to be able to turn it over to you and talk about your personal journey, most particularly related to advocating for unpaid labor. And while you're at it, letting them know about the book Our Home You wrote. So if anybody's
Oh,
watching
thank
on,
you.
yeah,
Yeah.
my boys actually they know this book, and most especially they know, they're like, isn't that cool, Mom? Your friend wrote a book. I was like, yeah, and you know what? I also wrote a book, and you never talk about that. Like, okay, yeah, but you're right. It is really cool. So I'm going to link this in the show notes, and if you're on YouTube, you can see the cover at least to be able to recognize it yourself. But Lori, let's talk about your journey, your particularly your attention to unpaid labor at home, and what inspired this book.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for the opportunity to connect with your listeners. And I love that you use the word magnetic because even before we knew anything about each other, I felt that the universe really kept bringing us together. We kept bumping into each other only to find out that, yes, our work and our values are so aligned. So I'm really grateful for the chance to have this meaningful conversation with you. I was born and raised in Canada. And I had a 15-year professional career as a marketing and strategy professional, and really, really thrived and loved this work. When I had my first child, I had been working at Four Seasons Hotels and Resorts, which was a fabulous job prior to having kids, tons of travel, a lot of late nights. And when I had my baby, and keep in mind in Canada, we have a full year of maternity leave, which is wonderful in some ways because it really allows you to, sink into that interesting role, which is unpaid work. But it makes it even more complicated to reconnect to paid work when the time comes. And I was trying to engage with my employer, Four Seasons Hotels, at the time in some flexibility in work. It just wasn't on offer. And with this little baby, as much as a 3-week trip to Bora Bora to open a hotel, used to be the sexiest thing. It just wasn't where I was at anymore. You talk all the time about the shifting in our values. And my husband and I talked a lot about it. And we decided as a team that I would shift from the economy of commerce to the economy of care. And I went all in on family and all in on community involvement and charity and whatnot. And I absolutely took the same devotion and standard and commitment that I had always applied to my paid work into this new unpaid stage. And I guess a little bit to my surprise, I was really thriving in it. And I raised my hand for every community opportunity. I was the head of the Parents Association at my kids' schools. And when my two boys were 2 and 4, we as a family had the opportunity to move with my husband's job to London, England. We were there for 4 years. And it was actually fascinating how this unpaid work that I was doing was actually so essential to our reestablishment in that country, to making new friends, to discovering our community, to embedding ourselves in what was important and in thriving with our new connections. And so my husband and I really, really valued me in that role. Fast forward 4 years, we had a second opportunity to move to Chicago. And once again, I saw the value in this unpaid role not just in, the moving and the logistical stuff, but all of the emotional and mental labor of reestablishing your family. And every time we move, we have to get new guiding family documents. So wills, insurance, and all of that is different in every country that we live in. And my husband said to me when we landed in Chicago, we don't have anyone here. We don't have any family. We haven't made friends yet. We have no safety net. He said, if God forbid something were to happen to you, he said, I would have to leave work to take the lead role in family. And so why don't we look at getting you disability insurance? And I thought, okay, sure. Like, I didn't really think twice. And I filled in all the forms and did the medical exams and went through the rigmarole, only to be summarily rejected by this insurance agent who said to me, I don't understand. You're just a housewife. If something happens to you, there's no loss. Why do you need disability insurance? And it was such like a smoke coming out of my ears and like flames coming out of my nose moment to be told by this man that on his algorithm, I had no value. And all of this work that I had not only devoted my whole self to for at that point 10 years, but that I had seen had so much impact, not only on my core family, but on the community that I was contributing to. And for sure on myself, right? Like recognizing my own growth and my own achievements. And I really just couldn't unhear that he had said that. And it opened my eyes to the societal devaluing of unpaid work. And I thought to myself, okay, if I want people to see what I'm doing now as work, I have to start talking about it like that. So the first thing I did was I made myself a LinkedIn profile as a stay-at-home mom. And I started to like think through and articulate, okay, what have I been doing? Because I think what we often do in that like at home, or focused on family stage is we're so busy as mothers recording the milestones of the children. And we see their successes as sort of a reflection of our own. But what I encourage mothers to do, and I'll talk about my coaching, my professional relaunch as well, but what I really encourage moms to do is, it's wonderful to take time and document all the successes of your children, but also reflect on and record your own. And LinkedIn is a great place for it. But even if you just have a journal on how have I grown in this role? What have I done? What have my contributions been? And it doesn't have to be, oh, I raised $1 million at the school charity. It could be, any small things that are stretching you or growing your brain in different ways than you did maybe in a corporate role, or if you were a lawyer or a teacher or whatever you were. And so I wanted to become a part of the movement, a part of the voice, to raise awareness to the fact that not only is this work being devalued, but actually it is the work that makes all other work possible in our society. We are raising future laborers. We are molding, right, our society, our beliefs. And so I found Eve Rodsky, who wrote a book called Fair Play, which is really a manifesto about gender equity in domestic labor and the value of unpaid work. And I studied with Eve, and I became a Fair Play facilitator and family coach, which has been the most meaningful work. But I wanted to do more. And I thought, I'm still like really molding my own platform. Like, where is my credibility? And I thought, at this point, I really can't impact government policy. I can't really impact corporate policy from where I'm sitting. But I thought, I've been solo with my kids for 10 years. I've been super involved in their schools. I've been very involved in charities worldwide. I can talk to kids. And Eve said about her book, Fair Play, one of the questions that she gets most often is, how do I deal in my kids? And so I thought, why don't I be someone who sparks those powerful conversations for families? And so I wrote my book, Our Home, the Love, Work, and Heart of Family, which really is, it's a picture book for kids sort of less than 10, but it's really an inspiration for any family who wants to have powerful conversations about not only that this is the work of gratitude, but that this is work for all of us and not women's work, as the insurance salesman seemed to think that it was.
Oh my gosh, I took so much from that, and I have this whole thing of quotes now. I love, as an example, you talked about your shift from economy of commerce to economy of care,
Yes.
and that it's the work that makes all other work possible. I'm a full believer that we need to rebrand stay-at-home moms
Yes,
because
ma'am.
it so insufficiently captures all of the weight that is carried. And I'm a believer that all moms work. It's just whether you're working for an income or work that you're not. But your story, most particularly around trying to get insurance, it just amplifies that so much of the work is not necessarily paid or unpaid, it still is invisible. And
That's
that's
right.
what I took away more than anything from the story, is that largely speaking, men, society, like corporate, all of them tend to marginalize the invisible labor because it conveniently happens at their feet. And I love
That's
that
right.
your husband actually acknowledged, I value this, I
Yeah,
value you, and you are a critical member of our team, like our family team. So
right.
props to him for leading the way
Mhm.
there. And my
Yeah.
greatest appreciation for you, Lori, for being the one to evangelize this and really put a stake in the ground to bring the kids into the equation, because I believe that's where we reset history, is
That's
when
it.
we groom the next generation.
That's it. That's it. And, this is really about family wellness at its heart, and about shining a light on something that I really feel has sort of gone missing, which is gratitude for all that we have and for those with whom we share a space. And when I talk about wellness, there's research that tells us that women globally, and I don't mean to suggest by any means that this is like an American or a North American phenomenon. Women globally carry 75% of the work of care, that unpaid, invisible work. And that's just the work that we can measure, right? The executional part. It doesn't measure the mental and emotional load, of course, which women, I think, probably carry an even larger percentage of. And it was measured that this work globally is worth $10.9 trillion to the global economy if, Courtney, it were measured. And I should say, this number that they came up with measures this work at minimum wage, which is like another issue, really, in how it's perceived. In addition to the weight that women are carrying, it's measured that we have 5 fewer hours of leisure time per week. And I say women, but the reality is that this is being measured in girls as young as 8. And so you're absolutely right when you say the power that we have now is to break the cycle of gender inequity that is, society telling women that we have a societal obligation to show up for our families from dawn till dusk until depletion. This is impacting women's wellness to the form of 80% of autoimmune diseases are found in women, twice the instances of stress, depression, anxiety related disorders that are tied directly back to this load that we carry. And it isn't sustainable. And so what I really am on a mission to do is to create a new cycle for this next generation where they not only see this work, which is to your absolutely perfectly said point, is invisible, but they understand the value of it, and families are guided by a new kind of energy around this work.
I greatly appreciate this, Lori. And I think about my mom and my mother-in-law, both who stayed at home. Sort of. They also had some unpaid, some paid work. Like my mom does a lot of the administrative work for my dad's company. But man, my mom, I feel like I can attribute my health right now to her. She
Right,
was the one that was bringing us home cooked meals between
right.
sports practices
Hmm.
when my friends were all eating at McDonald's. So I think
Right.
about the compounding impact that has on my healthcare today, which has an impact on the healthcare system and my companies and what they're having to pay for me. Like you could
Yep.
pull that thread,
Interesting. Oh,
you could
so
pull it
interesting.
through, but it's a
Yes.
hard thread
Hmm.
to quantify. And I think that's ultimately what you're saying is what's quantifiable is already outstanding enough. But
Yep.
then when you start trying to really double click on that, the
Yep.
compounding effect of the economic impact is astronomical.
And I want to say, even though my story is one of me having this full time at home, the reality is, and I've heard you talk about this so much that, of course, women working outside the home too shoulder this burden to the same degree, right? And so, even if they're not the ones doing the laundry, they're managing the system to get the laundry done. And so the weight still exists for all women. And we all need to sort of turn it on its head so that what the priority is us having time for wellness, time for creativity, time for family bonding, and we're not just lost in doing this work from dawn till dusk silently and magically, like in the dark corners of our home when everybody else is asleep, is at play, is at school, is focused on studies or whatever. It has to be something that the whole family sees is a part of their responsibility as a team and an expression of the love that they have for one another.
Yeah, and that is in the spirit of that, Lori, that I thought it was very important to have you here because I think that while your story is quite different in some ways than a lot of my listeners who spend their day in and day out in corporate and stayed in the workforce. So they are both giving and sacrificing in slightly different ways. I think there is just still a significant overlap, probably 80% of the overlap and really the challenges that that women in particular are dealing with on a day-to-day basis as a mom in today's society and the pace of today's society and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I like amen to everything you just said. So let me start. I do want to spend most of our time on that invisible labor and how we can facilitate the shift in our homes. But let's talk about values. So
Yeah.
you started there with your decision to leave your very sexy career in the hotel industry. I mean, like
Yeah.
truly a dream job for most people. You were in comms, right?
Marketing communication
Yeah.
strategy.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Like,
Mhm.
God, how like what a fun job. But you
It really
made
was. It was
Oh, I
fantastic.
like it's a
Yeah.
sexy job. It is on paper a really sexy job, but you recognize that your calling and your purpose here was so much more than just that career. And you made the intentional decision to realign your entire life
Right.
with something that you valued and that your husband valued in trying to create what it was that you all wanted to as a family. So I've spent the past 10, 12 years in culture shaping space in corporate America. And culture shaping is all about value alignment. It's how do we align the values of people with the values of the organization? And that's very much the thread that I pull through with my clients is I believe that the values of you and the values of that you and your partner have on behalf of your family should be what leads and drives decisions because what you value influences what you prioritize and what you prioritize influences how you spend your time, your money, and your energy. And you very
Yes.
much illustrated that. I know it's something that you also deeply believe in, Lori. So let's start there around your concepts and perspective on leading with values and then how you can align as a family on what those value systems are and how they show up in your daily life.
Yeah, thanks, Courtney. And I know this is something that is so entrenched in your work and something that we really have in common. I think it's really interesting, when people fall in love and partner off, there are a lot of conversations that are fundamental to knowing if you can take it to that next level. So I think a lot of partners might talk about religion or their focus on education or how many kids, if they want to have kids or not. But there aren't a lot of partners that come together and say, listen, This is how I like to take out the garbage. How do you like to take out the garbage? And it's so interesting because these are the things that you're going to do like daily, weekly for the rest of your life. And the opportunity is to come together as a family and listen. The best time to do this is when emotions are low, cognition is high. You've got to have good snacks, but I suggest that this kind of family meeting is absolutely something that children can participate in. They are so thoughtful and have so much to say about the way the family moves through life. And every family is so different. We kind of flow through every day with our own commitments, our own agreements. We know where we have to be. We know how we're getting there. We can't wait to meet up and debrief. But there's so much that has to get done that we haven't made a plan for. And I know it doesn't necessarily sound sexy to talk about the garbage, but let me assure you that if you have this conversation once, you don't have to have it again, because what you're doing is you're talking about what is important to your family. Where are the stressors? Where is the resentment keeping in? What makes you feel safe? What makes you feel like your home is comfortable? And, you can even ask this of a child, like, what makes you feel happy in our kitchen? What makes you feel comfy in the family room? And it may be for some families, well, I really like it when all the toys are put away because I know where everything is. Or it might be like, well, I feel stressed when all the toys are put away because I feel like I can't touch them. Like, I would rather that we leave things out because then I feel like I'm invited to play. And what you find when you start talking about values is what also is revealed is, guess what? Even in our own family unit, we are all wired so differently. And we don't always thrive in the same standard. And so when you're talking about what's important, which invariably leads you to, okay, here's how we're going to do it then. Even in your own little family, we have a family of 4 here. We are wired differently. We have different needs. We have different capacities. We have different commitments. And so this is an opportunity to sit and talk through all of this. The example that I like to give sometimes is, I'm a very particular person. I label myself as a type A for better or for worse. Everything has its place. Everything goes away. My 15-year-old simply does not thrive in that kind of environment. And so it's really important for me to see that I don't go into his room and say, this is ridiculous. This is a mess. Like, this all needs to be put away. No, in fact, he feels safe and comfortable when all of his surfaces are covered in the things that are meaningful to him. Pictures of friends, awards he's won, trophies, crafts he made when he was a child, whatever. He loves to have those all around. So me teaching him about his environment is not imposing my standard, but helping him to be his best self. And these sort of family meetings and establishment of values and standards are where we can have these powerful conversations.
I love that. I just mad respect for you, Lori, and respecting his individualism. Because I'm like you. I mean, I need everything put away. I need everything decluttered. And my rule and what I teach my clients is very similar. It's like when in your kids' space, individual space, things can live and breathe differently than they do the
Yes.
family space,
Mm-hmm.
which you technically own as the owner of the house or, as the head of the house, even if you're just renting. But like, yes, you can dictate out there, but it really does allow them to grow when they are able to be their individual. So like I that speaks to me so fully as I have halfway bitten off my tongue every time I walk into my boys' space because
Yeah.
they operate very
Yeah.
similarly.
Yeah. And I think it's really important that they understand how to preserve the value of a space. So you're not going to have a
Yeah.
pizza box under the bed, right? And like if something spills, it's really important that you tell me so that we can, get the wet vac or whatever it is and help get it up. But like if you thrive in a space that is and I don't even want to use like a judgmental word like messy or chaotic or whatever, because it's not fair, right? It's like
Mhm.
it's fulsome.
Awesome. I
then
like that.
that's really important, because if that's what makes him feel like he can start his homework, if that's what makes him feel like he's a DJ, so if that's what inspires him to like mix his music or whatever it is, it's really important for us to have like that balance, and that is part of being a team, is that he feels he can communicate his needs to me.
Yeah, at work, I call this a social contract and like in
Mm.
corporate. And
Mhm.
the reason I use a social contract is it really shows up at the organization level and the team level. But I think
Mm.
in the context in which you're saying it absolutely applies to the family as well. So if you think about a social contract at the corporate level, at the organization level, it's something like saying, we require you to be in the office 2 days a week, but one of those days has to be Wednesday in order to make sure we're all together once a
Mhm.
week. So
Mhm.
that way, we're not going to dictate your other days, but we're saying this is the non negotiable, and here's why we value that. And then the rest, you have agency to make your decision. So then at a team level, the way that might manifest is saying, listen, we need to be at our clients for in person for this one meeting. And then other than that, you can be anywhere you choose as long as your video is on with the clients. And when it's
Mhm.
our team meeting, then feel free to take that video off. So that way you can take it on a walk or you can take it while you fold laundry.
Brilliant.
Because this is what we value. And then if you pull that through to the family level, which is essentially what you're talking about, it's okay, here is our standard way of share in our shared space, in our shared way of doing life. And then outside that, you have the freedom and the framework to do what it is that you value.
And what's really important about connecting on all of these sort of like tasks and family opportunities as a team is that it becomes less of like a top down thing. Like maybe we were raised with like a because I told you so kind of mentality
Mhm.
from our parents. And we're evolving into like because we agreed to. And everything that comes from your values and standards, right? Like the division of labor that unfolds from that is an agreement that everybody participated in. And ostensibly, what it does is it becomes your North Star. And what's also important is this can change at any time. You regroup as a family with whatever frequency works for you. Let's say it's once a month. And you say, like, how's everyone feeling with what we decided last time? How's everyone doing? Like, are you finding it's a good match for you? What tasks you agreed to take on? Like, are you feeling overwhelmed with any part of it? Is there something that you don't understand? And it becomes an opportunity for information sharing, and it's organic, because you want everybody to thrive in it. It's so important for people to understand that they can come back and say, you know what, this actually isn't working for me. Or actually, you realize as a family, like we're doing something that we actually don't value. We're doing it because we think someone else expects us to, or we think someone's going to come over and see that we haven't done it, and that's going to stress us out. But like all that matters is knowing that your little family gets to choose how you live. And it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks or what anyone else says or what anyone else does. This is your life. You can make it whatever you want, but it's really important that you do it as a team.
Nobody that is listening could actually see this, but Lori could see me like actually legit fist bumping when she said that. That was your mic drop moment, Lori, and something that I truly, truly, truly care about and want to punctuate. Because what I always tell people is that what I value is different than what you value, Lori, and
Mhm.
different than anybody else that we talk to, and even different than our own family members to some
That's
degree.
it.
You
Mhm.
find the overlap and then you stay in your lane because if you're doing something that doesn't align with your values, it's because of external pressures. It is because
Yes.
of you see your neighbors do it, or you see your friends do it, or you feel like that's what everybody else does, your colleagues, or that's even what how you were raised. There's a lot of historical bias that influences a lot of the way the women that I work with start doing life. And it's like, well, this is how my mom did it, or this is how
Yes.
my family experienced it. Well, they got to they got to do life their way, and now it's
Yep.
your turn.
Yep.
What is it that you value? And as a parent, I imagine that will be very hard on me as my kids grow, because
Yeah.
I feel like we're doing a pretty bang up job, but at the same
Hmm.
time, I have to value and respect their ability to walk their own journey.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. You just raised such an important point, which is the reflection on how we were raised. And this is such an important element in this conversation for partners, because so much of the behavior that we come into a partnership with is molded by the modeling that we saw. And we don't question it until we have these powerful conversations like, well, why do you do that way? Or why do you expect that I'm going to do all that? And it's like, oh, like I never thought of that. And I guess I expect that because my mom always did that, but like they didn't have the right balance, or she was always exhausted, or she was like very often like struggling to find joy in this work because she was so overwhelmed. And I don't want that for us. And so this is a cycle breaking behavior that comes from these powerful conversations.
Yeah, yep, that's it. This is exactly where I start my clients with or these type of conversations for this very reason, because you don't realize how mentally hamstrung you are
Hmm.
until you start to check your thinking and
That's
check
it.
whether or not it actually aligns with how you want to do life. So let's pivot a little bit to start talking more tactically about
Hmm.
how we can bring some of these concepts to life. So to set the stage, I'm going to actually pick on my boys a little bit. So they just got back from overnight camp, and they always come back really grossed out because
Sure.
they're used to like higher standards where things are clean and things are orderly. And then they go to overnight camp and it is just a lot of boys in a bunk. And as a boy mom, Lori, I know you can imagine that level of, the standards, I guess, that
Oh,
probably
yeah.
exist with like
Uh-huh.
elementary school age boys, a lot of them unparented.
Yeah.
But when they came back, they were just like, thank goodness we need we need the order, we need the cleanliness.
Oh,
And
I love it, actually.
I
Yeah.
love that motivation
Hmm.
for them. And I also know realistically that there is still a lot of facilitation I need to do and a lot of teaching I need to do
Hmm.
to where they are contributing to the order and they are contributing to the standards that they appreciate without that load fully falling on my shoulders. So you do a
Correct.
lot of work. Even your book, Our Home, starts talking about um, the importance of everybody leaning in there and carrying
Yeah.
their weight. So, what would you say to the mom who's like, yes, I want the order and my kids like it, but I don't want to be the nag. I don't want to have to
Yeah.
carry that mental load. How would you inspire children to become intrinsically motivated themselves to
Hmm.
actually pitch in and lean into those expectations?
So three things I like to talk about, and this is such a great question. And I will say, ideally, this is going to be a priority for both parents to model for the kids and engage the kids in the opportunity to develop into this work. Um, we work toward that in a lot of our partnership coaching work. But in general, three things that the family can do is number one, make this work more visible. And so anytime we're inclined to be doing things sort of silently and magically in the late hours or the early hours or whatever it is, sort of like make it known that this work is happening. Make it known that there's power in this work. If you're doing laundry and you're used to putting it away in the kids' drawers, take one step back, put the laundry on their bed, leave it for them to put away so that they can walk into the room and see, oh, look at this laundry that was done for me, right? If you're going grocery shopping, take a kid with you. If you're doing some food prep for dinner, invite one of your kids into the kitchen to help you with some little safe elements that they can do. So making it more visible, even if you're fortunate to have help around the house, encourage that wonderful helper to do the same, right? So showcase more of what this work is. And also, the second part is explain to your kids the why behind this work. So, yes, it's a heavy load managing a home and family and cars and all of these other investments that we have to protect, but it's so much more than just a to-do list or a chore chart. Like there is reason behind all of it. And if kids start to understand not only the impact of it, but the benefit directly to them, then they suddenly have a stake in the work. So the example that I like to give here is if I say to my 15-year-old, oh, you need to change your sheets, he's probably going to groan. Like, so annoying, the fitted sheet, one of those tasks that is just like, ugh, a little bit annoying. But if I were to say to him, hey, buddy, I'm not sure if you realize this, but sleeping on a clean pillowcase really facilitates clear skin. Like, I think it's important that we change your sheets with regularity. So you're really at your best here. And then suddenly he's like, oh, I get why we do this. And by the way, it's not me doing a favor for my mom. It's it's me facilitating my own wellness and therefore impacting the wellness of the family. The other example I like to give is if you do a lot of carpooling or whatever with you have young kids, your car likely has a delightful carpeting of, granola bar bits and banana peels and wrappers and all kinds of good stuff. And you can be frustrated that the car's a mess and shout about it. Or you can explain to your kids, hey, I want to tell you how a car holds value. And if we go to sell this car or trade in this car that we're leasing in X many years, if we keep it tidy, it'll be worth this much. I'm holding my hand up high. And if we don't care for it, it's probably going to be worth way less than that. So as a family, if we work hard to keep this car clean, we will take that extra money, if it's $500, even if it's $100, if it's 1,000, whatever, we can dream about what we will do with that money that helps our family. And so they have a stake in keeping the car clean. They have a vision for the impact of their effort. And then the third thing really is the energy that we give to this work. And I by no means do I want to suggest that it isn't a heavy load. It is a lot. And the Surgeon General of the previous administration suggested that families daily feel utterly overwhelmed by the weight of this unpaid work. But if we can change the energy we give it and maybe not call it chores, but focus on it as expressions of gratitude, as I think I mentioned before, for all that we have and for those with whom we share a space, then the work has less of a patina of dread and more of an opportunity, again, to impact the wellness of our family.
I really love the way that you've positioned this, Lori, most particularly around helping them understand the why.
Mm,
As with anything in life, when you understand the why, it it allows you at least empathy. You might not, it's still, I mean, who wants to do chores?
right.
Most often, none of us. Like my oldest said to me yesterday, he was, I give my boys a Jolly Rancher for every time I see them doing something that I didn't ask them to do. And um like in order to continue incentivizing them to help and see things and do things without being
Hmm.
nagged and asked.
Love it.
Granted, that's where they are from an age perspective. Like eventually they're going to outgrow that need. But when I saw him, he was eating watermelon, he made a mess. Then he automatically started cleaning that up and got out the Windex and whatnot to clean the counters. So I was like, what in thank you. Great job. Go, after you clean it up, go grab your Jolly Rancher. And he was like, well, I didn't want to do it, but I knew that you would ask me to do it. So I did it anyway. I was like, of
I
course you
love
wouldn't want
that
to do it.
reflection.
Yeah, but
Love
like,
it.
who do you think wants to do that? Do you think I want to
Yeah.
clean up your mess?
Yeah.
No. And
Yeah.
so it's so helpful for them to understand why they do
And it's
something.
connected to how much he loved the watermelon.
Yeah, yeah.
He was grateful for the watermelon. And so whatever followed just was a part of that.
Yep, yep, exactly. So, you also talked about like pulling on that thread of the kitchen. You talked about helping in the kitchen, and that is something else that I really believe in and believe it starts early on because, or in the laundry, I love the laundry example.
Mhm.
Because if kids when they're younger don't engage in those mundane, everyday household routines, then by the time they reach middle school to high school age, what are they going to do? They're going to go check themselves out in their
Well, that's it.
room
That's it.
and forget that it actually takes a lot of work to help. So you're missing the opportunity not to only teach them how complex it is to live the life of leisure that they're living as a child in your household, but you're also missing the learning opportunity
That's
and the
it.
executive functioning skills by
Exactly.
ensuring you are investing in their own development relative
Mhm.
to carrying that function.
I think as parents, it's totally understandable that we have an instinct to protect our little ones' childhood. I think I hear from parents all the time, but they're only little once, like let them play, let them do. But, if you think about what they're playing with, they have a plastic kitchen, they have a plastic baby that they're caring for, they have a plastic, tool set. And so they see what we're doing. They want to be a part of important things. They want to feel trusted. They want to feel empowered. And then when our kids get a little older, mine are 13 and 15 now, of course you have this inclination to want them to focus on their studies, their athletics, or their creative pursuits that are really building up their resume as they try to get into college. It's so competitive. But the reality is that research shows us that when kids are involved in the work of home, they are building critical muscles on, things like self-esteem, responsibility, ability to approach and complete tasks, ability to ask for help when they need it, which isn't easy for everybody, and report done when they're complete, and they're better equipped to deal with frustration, adversity, delayed gratification, et cetera. And ultimately, this really impacts positively not only their academic success, but their personal relationships. And it is holistic parenting. If we send our kids off, fabulous that they got into a great school, but if they don't know that they have to change their sheets with regularity, guess what? When they invite a friend over to their room, it's not going to go well. I read this really cute story about a woman who moved her son into college, and she put a $20 bill between the fitted sheet and the mattress so that he would find it when he changed the sheets, and he never found it. And it was this like, sort of like light bulb moment for her, which is like, yeah, he wasn't really used to that being a part of his routine. And if they have a big exam but they don't know how to nourish themselves the night before properly, then they're not going to thrive. So this is holistic parenting, and as you say, building these muscles and helping them feel like they're a part of really important and valuable things. And guess what? Also, this does not have to be like a solitary pursuit of chores. I have to tell you, I lost my dad over a decade ago. But when I think about him, like my heart is filled by the memories of all of these things around the house that we collaborated on together. And it's funny, Courtney, because I didn't recognize it at the time, but of course now I have so much more like education and insight to see that I think my dad had this like beautiful wiring, this like neurodivergence, such that he did have a tough time completing tasks on his own. And he engaged me very often as his shadow, because he knew that my personality type would keep him on track and would get him to the finish line. And as such, this partnership was incredibly bonding for us, and incredibly revealing of my own skills. And so there is so much opportunity for families to connect over this work too, and that goes into the energy that we give it.
Yeah, I believe so fully that our job as parents is to prepare our kids to be contributing members of society. I heard my
That's
parents say
it.
that on repeat, and I believe it. I absolutely believe it. We not might not always love what they do and their choices, and they might have some bumps in the road, but the bottom line is we need to our job is to train them to have those exact functioning skills so they can problem
Exactly.
solve, so they can be resilient, so they can confidently live on their own without us having to be there to hold their hand when they're, 22 years old trying to take a final exam of their senior year of college.
Yes,
Um,
exactly.
So, okay, going back, Lori, quickly, if I was to want to fully engage the different members of my household, what tips or recommendations might you have around encouraging everybody to take on something that is unique to them, unique to their,
Mhm.
their interests or strengths, whatever it may be?
So there's a little bit of like unlearning before we can do this learning. And the first thing that I really encourage, the women who are looking to lead this change for their family is around this word help. Um, this is a really complicated phrase because it feels really nice to say, oh, my husband helps a lot, my kids help a lot. But the implication with that model is that the work is owned by the woman and the rest of the family is sort of waiting in the wings for her instruction, her direction, her to-do lists, etc. And that is not a sustainable model for families looking for balance and wellness and health. And so I really suggest moving away from, can you help me, into language that is much more not only empowering but collaborative. And so if you're about to take something on in the house, invite one of your kids in by saying, hey, I'm about to do this. I would love to show you how I do it so that you would feel comfortable and confident to do it on your own. Or, hey, I'm about to take on this thing. I could really use your partnership, your strength, your smarts, whatever it is, to be a part of it with me. Or, hey, I'm about to sit down with a basket of laundry. Like come fold it with me and we'll catch up from our week. We haven't had a chance to chat. So just like a reframing of the language. And similarly, on the flip side, I definitely love a thank you, but I feel like, again, thank you implies, you did me a favor. This was my work. You took a part of it. And so you did something that should have been mine. But really, if we want to model ourselves as an efficient organization and as a team, the opportunity is more to talk to the kid about the impact of their contribution to the wellness of the family and not as a favor to you. Or if you do want to say, thank you for taking that on, be really specific about what it meant to you. So, hey, I really appreciate the half an hour that you spent folding the laundry. I thought I was going to have to tackle that, and because you did it, I was able to do X, Y, and Z. And it was stressing me out that I hadn't gotten to do that yet, and now I feel like a great relief for having had the time. So that was really, really meaningful. Or the opportunity to say to your kid, how did you do that so quickly? I didn't know you knew how to do that so beautifully. Like, wow, you're really getting good at that. Or wow, the impact that you had was this, that. Like, oh, wait until your dad sees what you did, right? It takes it so much further than just a thank you. And so little tweaks in language, and then also just going back to what we talked about, which is really understanding your kid's capacity, knowing that some days are tougher than others. It's not going to be like a perfect flow and always the same. And you have to know when your kid has more availability for participation, and when it's a tough day, and you don't want to, just like we don't want to have the weight of this on top of everything else all the time. They have to know that they can come and say to us, I don't feel like I can do this today. Like, I'm overwhelmed by practice, homework, rehearsal, whatever it is. Like, can you give me some grace? And that has to be a part of it.
That's so good. Lori, I love that you also gave specific language that can be used that is a more empowering and inviting. And I love the call out around ownership of what thank you implies or what help me implies. And how we can use that to protect, the anti of that to protect ourselves and continue to shift that narrative. I always in the corporate space tell people or encourage people to use the language, I appreciate you because, and it's a very
Mm,
similar type of,
yes.
very similar. It is. So instead of just that blanket thank you, where it just feels empty when you explain the why you're expressing the gratitude, it provides more depth. That depth provides more stickiness in the relationship.
That's
And the
it. I
stickier the
love that
relationship, the more
stickiness.
trusting.
Yep, I
So
love
it
that.
all kind of pulls from that thread. And it's
Mhm.
exact, I mean, that those are four simple words to remember, but if you use those, then it inherently will lead you to providing the why behind it, which is
Mhm.
a will put people, most particularly your kids in the circumstance, in a place of empowerment. So
That's it.
fantastic call out. Okay, so quickly to wrap up, Lori, I ask every guest that I have on handful of lightning round questions. So the first one for you, what is your go-to stress busting activity?
So a happy, happy thing for me is water in all of its forms. And so when I feel like I need an escape or a break or a pivot, I will find water. So I love to swim. I'm fortunate. I live by Lake Michigan here in Chicago, so I will walk down and all along the lake and just take that in. Even if I don't have that much time, I'll take a hot shower. And I find, and it's interesting, I always found this with my kids when they were little too. If they were like going a little bit bananas, I would draw a nice bath for them, and immediately it was so calming and such a great reset. So water works for me in that same way.
I love that example. My friend Rachel, who leads a company called Parenting on Mars, always says, anytime you're in doubt, like just add water. If things are going sideways, just add
Interesting.
water. So it's very
I love
similar
it.
in that it's the stress busting, but she's talking about even as simple as like if your kid is hangry, they like just like give them water. They might,
Yeah.
that might help squelch it. You need something clean, just add water. Like there's so many
Mhm.
applications of that thinking, but
So
on this very
clever. I
similar
love it.
vein. Yep. So, okay, next one. What's the last book or podcast you really loved?
So it's interesting. I'm one of those people who's like constantly in motion. I'm a big, big walker. This is something that I also do to relieve stress and like refocus. So I constantly have a podcast in my ear. And the way that I start each day is with one daily podcast, and then there's one that's like not as frequent but always foundational to me. Is current events, a global current events podcast. So Mo News is a podcast that I love, and then the Pivot podcast is a business and tech podcast that is truly brilliant. It's Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway, and I get so much insight from them that really helps guide my business.
Perfect. Okay, next is if you could wave a magic wand, what task would you eliminate forever?
It really wouldn't be any of the tasks. What I would love to eliminate is nagging. The nagging to get to the task, which is what I'm really trying to help families move away from with the reframe of my work. So I love all these tasks. I see them as expressions of gratitude, but the opportunity is to believe in the jumping in and eliminate the nagging.
It's funny. You can tell that you swim in this stuff, Lori, because when I answer this for myself the very first time, I didn't process it from a household management perspective. I processed it from just like general. So my answer was that the task I'd eliminate forever is my bedtime routine. It takes me
Oh,
like an hour to go through
interesting.
all the lotions and potions. I absolutely
Oh,
hate it.
uh-huh.
It takes so long where I'm just like checked out and ready to go to bed. And I've found ways to make it more enjoyable. It is literally the only time I will either listen to fiction books or watch TV all day. I'll have my iPad up in my bathroom. So it makes it go by, but that's just not where my head went to. So it's funny that like you really are swimming in this
I
space.
really am.
Yeah, that's where your head went. But amen to nagging. Okay, very, very last question. Where can our listeners find more information about you, your methodologies, your insights? Of course, I'm going to link your book, but go ahead and show it one more time for the quick clips.
Thank you so much. So, my Instagram, which I'm really active on, and I share a lot of how we do things in our family to hopefully help inspire powerful conversations, is at Our Home, Our Pride. My book, Our Home, is available everywhere that books are sold. And if you're interested in some of the work that I've shared on LinkedIn, it's at Lori Sugarman-Li.
Well, thank you so much, Lori, for being here. Friends, thank you so much, as always, for listening in. This was a really important one to me because as we started, I believe Lori and I were brought together for a really big reason. And I think the insights that she shared hit squarely on what so many of you are faced with and challenged with every single day. So, Lori, thanks again for being here. And then for the rest of you, if this is your second, third, fourth time tuning in, it would really mean a lot if you subscribe and rate and review this podcast, share it with a friend, because small business is hard. It is very hard for me to get off the ground and to continue sharing this wisdom without you helping evangelize. So until next time, if nobody's told you lately, you're doing a great job. You've got this, mama. Hey friend, thanks for tuning in. Add the Life Management System podcast to your favorites so you don't miss my practical, snack-sized tips to help you manage the mental load and create a life that works for you. If we're not yet connected on Instagram, come say hi at Working Moms Movement for daily inspiration. And if this is your third or 10th time listening, it's time you bless the small business. Share this episode with another working mom in the thick of it and take 30 seconds to rate and review. It helps more than you know. And if you're ready to go from surviving to thriving and make your day-to-day actually sustainable, email me at Courtney@workingmomsmovement.com. Mention this podcast for 25% off my coaching services. I also speak and host workshops for organizations that want to support working parents from the inside out. Reach out if you think yours is ready. This has been the Life Management System, your shortcut to less chaos and more calm. And here's your reminder to keep managing your life instead of letting it manage you.